It's really interesting when you take a moment and think about it. Here we are, billions of people, all spinning on this blue planet in the vastness of space, each carrying inside us the same longing, the same ache. We express it differently, of course. Some call it loneliness, others call it purpose. Some chase it through achievements, others through things they can buy or acquire. But remove all the layers, all the disguises, and what's left? The desire to give love and to receive love. It's one of the most basic elements of being human, more essential than hunger, more persistent than the need for shelter. Because you can eat until you're full, you can have a home over your head, and still feel empty inside, still feel like a ghost drifting through life, unnoticed, untapped, unknown. And yet, here's where it gets complicated. We've made such a mess of it. We've turned something simple and natural into something tangled, something conditional, something that often brings more suffering than almost anything else in life. Why? Because we've confused the look of love with love itself. We've mistaken appearances for reality. Think about this. When did you first learn that love came with strings attached? Go back. Maybe you were a child and realized that affection came more easily when you were good, when you kept your room tidy, when you got the right grades. Maybe you noticed that smiles were easier to come by when you were helpful, when you stayed quiet, when you fit the expectations of those around you. Or perhaps it was later, in early friendships or early relationships, when you understood that to hold someone's attention, you had to perform. You had to be interesting, attractive, or successful enough. Somewhere in those moments, an idea was planted. The idea that love is something you earn, something you deserve only if you meet certain requirements. But that idea is tricky. Once it takes hold, it grows into a whole field of misunderstandings. By the time you're in your 30s or 40s, with enough life experience to see behind the curtain, you start to realize what a strange game you've been playing. You've been trading pieces of yourself for scraps of approval. You've been acting on a stage where the audience is never fully satisfied. And the exhaustion, the sheer exhaustion of it all, can be overwhelming. When love is built on conditions, it creates something that seems like love. It sounds like love. It might even feel like love for a while. But underneath, it's something else entirely. It's a deal, a contract. You give me what I need, and I'll give you what you need. You be this for me, and I'll be that for you. And for some time, perhaps even years, the deal holds. The balance is maintained. Each person gives what was promised, and so the relationship continues. But here's what no one really explains about deals. They are fragile. They only work as long as both sides keep meeting the expectations, and life has a way of making that impossible. You change, circumstances change. The person you were when you made the promise is not the person you are now, and the same goes for the other person. The whole structure rests on the assumption that humans can be fixed, predictable, reliable in the way a contract demands. But we're not machines. We are rivers. We are weather. We are constantly moving, constantly becoming something different from what we once were. So, what happens when the conditions can't be met? When you can no longer give what's expected? Maybe you lose stability and the security you offered disappears. Maybe health challenges arise or the qualities that first drew someone in fade. Maybe you grow weary of pretending to be someone you're not. In those moments, the mask falls away. The warmth you thought was love turns out to be something else: obligation, habit, or perhaps nothing at all. Just emptiness where kindness used to be. I've seen it countless times. People who devote decades to someone who has been loyal, caring, and present, only to wake up one day and realize they were never truly understood. They were necessary, useful, appreciated, but not loved in the way that nurtures the soul. The pain of that realization is immense, like discovering you've been speaking into a room that has been empty all along. You believed someone was listening, but there was only silence. This is the reality of conditional love. It is not cruel intentionally. Most people do not set out to hurt each other. But when love is based on what you do rather than who you are, it cannot help but fail. Because what you do will change. What you give will eventually end. And if that's all the love is based on, when it's gone, so is the love. It's important to understand something clearly. I'm not saying relationships shouldn't involve giving. Of course they should. Love naturally shows itself through care, through attention, through acts that support another person. But there's a huge difference between giving from a place of abundance and giving from a place of fear. One comes from the overflowing heart, freely and joyfully. The other comes from the anxiety of trying to hold on to someone's attention, trying to prove your worth, trying to secure affection. You can feel the difference, can't you? When someone gives from a place of abundance, there's a lightness, a joy to it. They are not keeping track. They are not waiting for exact repayment. They give because giving is part of who they are. The act of giving can be its own reward because the action itself brings joy. But when someone gives from emptiness or need, there's a heaviness to it, a burden. You can sense invisible strings attached, an unspoken expectation that something must be returned. That's not love. That's a transaction disguised as affection. The unfortunate truth is that many of us were conditioned from childhood to engage in these transactions. We were taught that love had to be earned, that affection was something to be granted only when we behaved in the right way. So we spend our lives trying to be good enough, trying to meet the rules, trying to secure the love we long for. But it rarely works, doesn't it? Even when we follow the rules, even when we do everything correctly, there's still a lingering sense that we are not truly understood. That if the mask slipped and others saw who we really are beneath all the effort, they might turn away. And so we trap ourselves in relationships where honesty and vulnerability are impossible. We can't fully relax. We must always be on, always performing, always maintaining the illusion of the person others expect us to be. The exhaustion of this over the years drains the life from us. We become hollow, going through the motions, wondering why something meant to bring happiness has turned into such a burden. Real love, the kind that doesn't turn into resentment, is different. It's not a deal or a contract. It's not about giving something in return for something else. Real love is freedom. Freedom to be completely ourselves without pretense or performance. It's being seen fully and clearly, with all our flaws and imperfections, and still being valued, not because we earned it, but simply because we exist. The key is that we cannot receive this love until we first give it to ourselves. This is a truth many don't want to hear. Too many of us believe that the right person will come and fill the emptiness inside us, that their love will heal us, prove our worth, or make us complete. But it doesn't work that way. A heart that is starving for love inevitably turns even the most generous gestures into transactions. Giving happens, but there's always a watchful hope for return. When we are desperate for love, every act of kindness carries an unspoken plea. See me, choose me, love me back. And others, even if unconsciously, feel the pressure. The expectation, the need, the silent demand weighs on them. Real love cannot survive under this pressure. It requires space. It requires freedom. The freedom to give or not give, to stay or leave, without making the relationship itself a hostage to need. So how do we stop being desperate for love? How do we fill ourselves enough to no longer rely on someone else for validation? The answer is both simple and challenging. We must make peace with ourselves, not superficially, but deeply, accepting every part of our being. The parts we admire and the parts we hide, our successes and failures, our strengths and weaknesses. This is not easy. Culture constantly tells us we should be improving, becoming better, stronger, more accomplished, more attractive. Implicitly, it tells us we are not enough as we are. But what if we are enough? What if we always have been? Not because we achieved or earned anything, but simply because we exist. Something brought you into being. Call it God, the universe, life itself, whatever feels right. It created you without asking permission or requiring proof of worth. You were loved into existence before you did anything to deserve it. The sun rises, the air fills your lungs, and life flows unconditionally. Your existence alone is proof of love. When this is truly understood, something changes. You see yourself not as a beggar at life's door hoping for scraps, but as already part of the feast, already held, already loved, already whole. From this place, love can flow freely, without expectation. Love becomes natural, an overflow rather than a performance. When two people meet from this state, something rare occurs. There's no desperation or grasping. They don't need each other to feel complete. They choose each other freely because they want to. And that choice, made without pressure or fear, is more valuable than any desperate attachment. This is the love that doesn't keep score, the love that doesn't falter when expectations are unmet, The love that sees you at your lowest and remains steady because it was never dependent on your performance. It is based solely on your being, and being cannot fail. It cannot disappoint. It simply exists. Yet this love is rare, not because it is hard, but because most people never stop searching long enough to discover it. They look outside for what exists within, moving from person to person, hoping each new connection will finally fill the void. But it never works because the issue was never finding the right person. The issue is being whole enough yourself to truly meet another. You cannot truly connect with someone at a depth you haven't explored in yourself. If you have never faced your own thoughts, fears, or pain, you cannot sit fully with another's. If you haven't forgiven yourself for imperfection, you cannot forgive others. If you cannot be alone without emptiness, every relationship becomes a lifeline, and others sense that, they feel used, and it wears on them. Before seeking love, before deciding you need someone to complete you, sit with yourself. Not with distractions, not with noise or busyness, but just you and your own presence. Notice the discomfort, the restlessness, the inner voice urging you to do more. Recognize that this voice is not your essence, it's just a learned pattern. Beneath it all, there is silence, a quiet foundation waiting to be noticed. And from this silence, love begins naturally, freely, fully. In silence, there is a kind of calm. Not the calm that comes from having everything figured out, but the calm of not needing to. The calm of simply existing, breathing in and out, being present in this moment without trying to make it anything other than what it is. When you touch that calm, even briefly, something inside you eases. And from that ease, love becomes possible. Not the desperate, grasping kind, but the kind that gives without keeping score, the kind that stays or leaves not because it has to, but because it truly cares. And here's something remarkable. When you find that calm within yourself, you start noticing it in others. You can see the ones who are also rooted in themselves, who don't need you to fix or complete them. And when two such people meet, it's not about saving each other. It's about two whole beings choosing to walk side by side for a while, sharing what they have, learning from one another, growing together, but never losing their own sense of self. This is the irony. The moment you stop needing love, you become able to receive it. The moment you stop chasing it, it comes to you because you no longer approach others as a beggar, hands stretched, hoping they'll drop something in. You approach them as someone who already has enough, someone who has something to give, someone who can offer freely because giving doesn't take away from you. And people notice that they are drawn to it because it is rare to meet someone who isn't constantly taking, someone who isn't draining energy, someone who isn't using the relationship to fill a void. So, if you want to give and receive love, start here. Stop trying to earn it. Stop trying to prove you are worthy. Stop performing, pretending, or reshaping yourself into what you think others expect. Instead, look inward. Make peace with who you are there, not by fixing every flaw, but by accepting that nothing truly needs fixing. You are not a problem to solve. You are not broken. You are not incomplete. You are a living, breathing expression of life itself, and that is enough. It has always been enough. Love is not something to chase or earn. It is something you already are. It flows from you naturally, like light from the sun. And whether others return, it becomes secondary because you are not giving to get. You are giving because it is your nature. And in that giving, you realize something extraordinary. You realize that you were never empty. You were always full. You were always loved. You only forgot for a while. And when you remember, when you truly see it, everything changes. You stop asking for scraps and realize you are already at the table. You stop looking for someone to complete you and realize you were never half a person. You stop trying to earn love and simply become it. From that state of abundance, you meet others not as empty vessels hoping to be filled, but as rivers meeting rivers, each flowing from their own source, joining not out of need, but out of the joy of moving together for a time. This is the love that does not fade when circumstances shift. This is the love that doesn't sour when expectations fall short. This is the love that sees you at your worst and does not turn away, because it was never conditional on your best moments. It is rooted in the recognition that beneath the masks, the roles, and the stories you tell yourself, you are the same life, the same consciousness, the same being moving through everything and everyone. And how could life stop loving itself? So here is the invitation. Stop seeking love outside. Stop trying to become worthy of it. Stop performing and pretending. Instead, turn inward. Meet yourself fully. Accept yourself completely. Not because you are perfect, but because perfection was never required. And from that acceptance, from that peace, watch what happens. Watch how love begins to flow naturally from you. Watch how the right people enter your life, not to rescue you, but to share a journey with you. Watch how life itself starts to feel like the embrace you've been searching for all along. The love you desire is not somewhere out there. It is within you, waiting to be acknowledged. And once you see it, once you fully understand it, you realize you were never unloved, never alone, never incomplete. You were always held by something vast, generous, and unconditional, something so expansive you couldn't notice it because you were looking for something smaller, something you could grasp and control. But real love cannot be grasped. It can only be surrendered to. And in surrender, you discover that you are it. You always have been, and you always will be.